welcome back to the Full View. The Department of International Relations and Cooperation says 16 South Africans who were stranded in Dubai and Doha, respectively, have been successfully repatriated back to South Africa. They arrived yesterday, 2 April, following the announcement by the President of the relaxation of the restrictions to allow South Africans stranded abroad to travel back home. The group is currently under quarantine as per the regulations. Meanwhile, repatriation flights commence today from both Johannesburg and Cape Town. They will take off later on this evening. The flights are targeted at German tourists who have been stranded in South Africa due to the lockdown and the cessation of commercial air traffic. Clayson Monyela is the head of public diplomacy at the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, and he joins us now. Mr. Monyela, very good evening to you. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Let's first start with how many German tourists are still in South Africa and set for repatriation.
Good evening, Tsapi. So the number of German tourists who are still in South Africa, it's difficult to say because some are still making contacts with the German embassy. As you know, they are the ones who are coordinating the repatriation of their nationals back to Germany. South Africa is really assisting them, so they would have been responsible also for procuring or chartering the plane that's taking their nationals back to Germany. Okay, let me give you a figure
that they had given, which is 5,000 German tourists that are still in South Africa. And of course, on top of that figure, they've also said any EU nationals are eligible for repatriation that they will take on as well. Do those figures sound familiar to you?
I've seen those figures, and they sound just about the numbers that we've also been working around with. So, yeah, that would be correct.
Okay. So just give us a sense of the logistics. What is going to happen, where and when?
So there are 2 flights that are departing from South Africa tonight to Frankfurt and Munich from Cape Town. And we are also expecting more flights from, I think, tonight's ones. There will be other flights around the 7th and the 8th. And what we are doing in South Africa is that we are also, as you know, we've got South Africans who are stranded overseas in Europe and other parts of the world. So, for example, over the weekend, we are expecting the flight that's taking Germans back to Frankfurt and Munich to return with about 16 South Africans who are in Germany as we speak. So as more countries request repatriation of their citizens from South Africa, we are using this opportunity to bring back more South Africans using the same flights. As you have correctly said, 16 South Africans have already returned who were stranded in Dubai and Doha. They were repatriated successfully back on the 2nd. So we are also taking advantage of these flights to bring our people back home. As we speak now, we've got through the command center in Pretoria registered a total of 2,313 South Africans stranded in various destinations across the world. So we are doing everything possible, working through our missions abroad to coordinate with them to ensure that we can bring them back home. You would recall that Minister Pandor has instructed that we need to prioritize particularly those that are stuck at airports, students who have been asked to evacuate their residences, the elderly and the sick. So we are doing exactly that.
Okay. Now, I want to talk about, as you say, you'll be taking advantage of these chartered flights. What is the capacity, the type of aircraft that you're using to ship out EU nationals, mainly German tourists, to also use to bring back those 2,313 South Africans that are stranded?
So this is not going to happen at one go. It's not going to be one flight that is going to bring them back home. As I said earlier on, there is a number of flights that are going to be leaving South Africa, repatriating nationals of other countries who are stranded themselves in South Africa. I
understand that. I'm just asking about the type of aircraft, the capacity that we're dealing with. So obviously there'll be several flights, so we want to understand how many would be able to come back with those flights.
Sure. So this would be what's the technical term? So this would be a big enough plane to bring at least more than 150 people back home. So, but as I said, I mean, for example, this weekend from out of Germany, we're looking at about 16 South Africans. So the planes will be big enough to bring the numbers that we're talking about in tranches, not necessarily at one go.
And I want to reflect on that number that you counted. So obviously it's students, it's workers, some who are tourists, some 492, you said 495 that are undisclosed. Does this figure reflect the number of South African nationals who are aboard cruise ships in the United States, Florida in particular, because we understand that there are thousands of African nationals that are stranded there?
No, so this would be the number that we have recorded in the National Command Center. As the Minister and the President have been making calls that South Africans who are stranded overseas should register or at least let our missions know. As they do that, as they call into the National Command Center, we've been taking down their details as well as where they are. For example, I mean, we know that there are people in Peru, in Lima, in the U.S., people who are stranded on cruise ships, as you've just said. So we are recording those numbers, and as and when there are flights available that go to those destinations, we will be making sure that we bring our people back. For example, I mean, we are looking at taking advantage of a plane from Germany again around the 7th or the 8th to see if we can come back via Italy, where we also have approximately 130 South Africans, mainly the elderly, who are stranded over there in Italy. So there will be a series of these flights. As I said, the main purpose is that we want to make a call and assure all South Africans who are stranded abroad that the department, South African government, empathizes with their plight, and we are doing everything possible to assist them.
Thank you so much for speaking to us, Head of Public Diplomacy at the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, Clayson Monyela.